Hello Mudlarking Friends and welcome to 10-Minute Treasures with Old Father Thames. Each week during the COVID-19 lockdown, I will be sharing 10-minute videos with you looking at some of my favourite finds refound. A quick explanation for my new viewers: I'm a modern-day mudlark, which means I search the tidal River Thames foreshore in London, England, to find historical items which lay preserved in the anaerobic mud. From prehistoric via medieval to modern, the river contains a rich history of life's remnants from London and beyond, and I like to share that with you guys. Usually you'd see me down on the foreshore where I take you on a history hunt. However, as we're currently on lockdown, mudlarking is totally off limits. So for now, I am sharing my previous foreshore finds and their history from home. Fear not, I will still be sharing lots of footage of the tidal River Thames shot on previous adventures. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this little slice of history from me to you. This week we'll be looking at something I found whilst out mudlarking with Nicola White on a very chilly day. Now that's Nicola White Tideline Art. Luckily, Nick was filming and has kindly let me use her footage in this video.
Found a little...
Oh, that's a Primrose League badge.
Oh, I see PL?
No, it's, Primrose League.
Sorry, PL there. Yeah, Primrose League. Oh.
Yeah, now they were a conservative ladies club. I think I'm saying that.
It sounds about right.
Yeah, I found a Primrose League badge and I did a little bit of research on it, but I can't remember much. But I'm sure that it's, I think it's a woman's conservative.
It sounds quite right, yeah. Like a WI, but for very distinguished ladies.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. I thought it might be a brownies badge for a minute, but...
That's really lovely.
There we go.
Nice find.
As Nick cleverly identified, this find is a Primrose League badge, and mine dates from pre-1920. Made of brass, it measures 21mm across at its widest points. It has 5 petals with a monogrammed P and L sitting in the centre there. The raised edge and monogram indicate that it was once enamelled, just like this one on the screen. I know that my badge would also have been a yellow one. If you look very closely, you can see a remaining fleck of colour just between the petal rim and monogram there. Turning it over, we can see signs of the catch plate and where the pin would have been. This style of badge was made in the thousands, some of them with text on the back, which sadly this example does not have, or it has since eroded away. Badges are such personal items. This badge, like the pilgrim badge I featured in my last video, would once have been proudly displayed upon a person devoted to certain interests just like you or I, but many years ago. Who might they have been? So what exactly is the Primrose League? Well, since there's a vast amount of detailed info about them online, far too much to condense into our 10 minutes, after a brief summary on who and what they were, I'd like to look at 3 particulars. 1. The thinking behind their recruitment campaigns. 2. The part they did not play in women's suffrage. 3. Their alleged involvement with Aleister Crowley. The Primrose League was a late 19th and early 20th century organisation which promoted the ideals and principles of the British Conservative Party. The League was founded in 1883 by Sir Henry Drummond Wolfe and Lord Randall Churchill, who felt that conservative principles and ideals needed a bit of support from the people. The 1911 Encyclopaedia Britannica says, and I quote, "A small group had for some time discussed the means for obtaining the support of the people for conservative principles. Sir Henry Drummond Wolfe said to Lord Randall Churchill, 'Let us found a Primrose League.' The idea was accepted by several gentlemen in the habit of working together, and a meeting was held at the Carlton Club shortly afterwards, consisting of Churchill, Wolfe, Sir John Gorst, Percy Mitford, Satchel Hopkins, and some others. These gentlemen were of great service in remodelling the original statutes first drawn up by Wolfe. The latter had for some years perceived the influence exercised in benefit societies by badges and titular appellations, and he further endeavoured to devise some quaint phraseology which would be attractive to the working classes. So, in other words, one of the Primrose League's great ideas to make the society more attractive to people from the working classes was doling out pompous titles to make the little people feel important, of course. Quoting from the encyclopedia again, the title of Knight Harbinger was taken from an office no longer existing in the royal household. The regular gradation was instituted for the honorific titles and decorations assigned to members. This idea, though at first ridiculed, was greatly developed since the foundation of the order, and new distinctions and decorations were founded, also contributing to the attractions of the League. The next idea was a canny one. By holding events such as fêtes at stately homes by habitations, much like Masonic lodges, the working man and woman could enjoy a bun in the sun at a nice house. The middle classes could meet the local workers, and upper-class women, who largely were the face of the Primrose League, were offered opportunity for social and political mobilisation. In a sense, quite literally, using the shiny new Primrose League bicycles that provided means for them to reach a wide range of country villages. Essentially, the Primrose League wanted to be seen as the working-class friendly recruitment centre into the Tory fold. Despite their welcoming and wholesome guise, do a bit of digging and it doesn't take too long to find various murky goings-on not so far beneath the surface of this would-be-good, morality-promoting, anti-alien, empire-ascending gang. For example, surely this friendly conservative body concerned with recruiting the common people would also take interest in supporting women's suffrage. After all, their formidable female canvassers and campaigners must have made it awkward for the male hierarchy to refuse them the vote. No. Strange, then, that they would take their name and symbolism in honour of Benjamin Disraeli's love of the primrose. This is the same Disraeli, once an independent radical, capital I, capital R, who, having introduced his groundbreaking Reform Act of 1867, saw it, in its fourth incarnation, pass a bill to grant women the vote. In fact, their stance was to remain largely non-committal, even at the height of the Edwardian suffrage controversy. Some Primrose League members were more outspokenly sympathetic with anti-suffrage, supporters like Lady Ancaster of Grimsthorpe and Edith Milner of the York Milner habitation, who stated, "It would be a disastrous thing for the chivalry of England if women were put into the so-called position of equality with men." Charming, I'm sure. If you're in any doubt about how much some people at the time really didn't want women to have the vote, please enjoy these delightful propagandist posters. Now, the Primrose League weren't short of an underhand tactic or two. One of the ear-to-the-ground shapeshifters, said to be in their off-the-record employ, was none other than the great beast himself, Aleister Crowley. Crowley enjoyed many advantages in his life, not least being the nephew of a distinguished civil engineer, inventor, and patron of science, Jonathan Sparrow Crowley, who he was close to. After the death of his first wife, Jonathan married Anne Higginbotham, who was described by Aleister as tall, thin, distinguished, highly educated, an admirable chatelaine. She took that place in my affections which I could not give my own mother. Aunt Annie was a prominent member of the Primrose League, and Crowley goes on to say that it was through her influence with Lord Salisbury and Lord Ritchie I obtained my nomination for the diplomatic service. Now, before continuing down this road, I'd like to insert a little disclaimer. A lot of tinfoiling goes on when it comes to Crowley, so take any unprovable beliefs or theory that I'm about to repeat with a large pinch of salt. With that said, off we go. Dr. Richard Spence, historian and professor at the University of Idaho, believes that Crowley was involved in espionage activities for the British Secret Service from his early days as a student at Cambridge University. In his book, Secret Agent 666, Crowley, British Intelligence and the Occult, Spence claims that Crowley, spying on the perceived enemies of the Conservative Party, was involved in missions to the court of the then Russian Tsar. He goes further, saying that Crowley may have only joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn to investigate the shadowy political activities of its leader, Samuel MacGregor Mathers. Do what thou wilt with that information. A little Crowley joke for you there. If you want to read more about the Crowley-Primrose connection, look up Tobias Churton's writing on the subject, and much of this can be found online. Let's fast forward then. What became of the Primrose League? By the early 20th century, they had lost a little momentum. However, prior to World War II, the League was still able to fill out the Royal Albert Hall for its annual grand habitation. Activities continued after the war. The Primrose League Gazette carried on, featuring articles by leading politicians of the day, including the future Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Even up until the 80s, they limped on, celebrating a Primrose League centenary in 1983. At the end of 1988, following the resignation of its industrious secretary of 45 years, Evelyn Hawley, CBE, the Primrose League went into terminal decline. If you'd like to do some of your own research into the League, and it is fascinating, a great place to start is the Primrose League reference website. Details of that on the screen now. I hope you enjoyed the second episode in my 10-Minute Treasures series. It's a lockdown special edition, and I hope to be back on the foreshore soon. But until then, I'll keep doing these little history bites on some of my finds refound. Thanks as ever for subscribing and watching, and I'll share another 10-Minute Treasures with you again next week. Take care, everyone!